Hey John, how you doing?
Doing good. Hello, Kino. I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me as a guest.
Thank you for coming on. Much appreciated.
I'm looking forward to this. I've been attempting every which way I can to be able to get more recognition throughout South Africa for the contest and for all the aspiring writers and artists to know that they've got a way to be able to celebrate their talents and hopefully make it to the big time.
Yeah, yeah. No, thanks. Much appreciated. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for your contribution for aspiring artists, not just in South Africa, but all around the world.
Thank you. Yeah, we've had winners from 50 countries now. Are you a science fiction or fantasy fan?
Actually, both. Both.
Do you have any favorite authors?
Um, Sorry, I'm just checking something. We're getting a bit of latency on it. Can you hear me now clearly?
I can hear you clearly, but yeah, there's definitely a latency between my talking and you responding. So
Yeah. Yeah. The latency, I think, is just adjusting at the moment.
okay,
Um, I can't pin down to any specific author, but if I have to say fiction, it would be James Patterson. I'm not sure you're familiar
okay,
with him.
for sure, all of his
Thriller author.
adventure stuff and his gritty
Yeah.
adventure.
Like I love it.
Yeah,
Yeah, you know with me, what I've been bringing up lately with authors is this fine line between fiction and non-fiction. And I'm going to bring it up
yeah,
also, with our conversation. You know,
good.
because I'm not sure if you ever heard the saying, like television is your reality, right? So with regards to when I read a fiction book and then I evaluate the storyline of the book itself, I'm like, but these things sort of like happens in real life.
Yeah. Well, one thing I've got a podcast I've been doing now for about 5 years called Writers and Illustrators of the Future, and I've had
Yeah.
probably over 250 authors over the years, and I have a lot of publishers and editors and media and all kinds of people there as well. But the thing about fiction that makes it good fiction is your reader has to be willing to suspend disbelief. And that's the phrase that's used over here and for writers, which means that there has to be enough plausibility to the story. There has to be enough um, nonfiction, enough truth in it, enough real stuff in it, so that when the author drops in his fiction, his made up part, you kind of go, wait, what just happened there? You've got guys that specialize in alternate history, or they take some fact. I just interviewed one person who is who is a famous editor, but he's also an author, and he wrote a story about Abraham Lincoln, and there's a lot of actual facts in there, but then he wove in some of his fiction, and I was like, wow, I can't tell the difference. And he said, thank you so much, because he was trying to get that as a thing. Hubbard, who's the author that created this contest, Writers of the Future, wrote a lot of. He'd take a real premise, a real fact of history, and then weave it. His first novel, Buckskin Brigades, about the Native Americans, and he took an entry from the Lewis and Clark expedition and expanded on that. So you find the that's a real thing. And there's another thing too, which I've talked to a lot of authors who have the problem with fiction, is that fiction has to be believable. Real life doesn't. So you can have,
Yeah.
you can be going along, and I can be going along here, and then I'm ready to go in and you get the somebody's in trouble. I go there to save them, and just before I go in there to get them, because I'm the bad guy. Then the good guy, the bullet accidentally shoots through while they're shooting for a bird, and it misses, and it goes through, and it kills me. It's like, come on, that's not real. But yet, that's the kind of stuff that happens in real life. But you can't put that in a book because nobody will believe that. That doesn't happen. The classic one at the beginning of World War I. How Ferdinand was assassinated, but it was such there's so many mistakes and errors that led up to that. It was like, come on, there's no way that could happen. The guy that was attempting the assassination, he missed, and so the driver went to try to get Ferdinand away. The streets were too small for him to turn around, so he took a side alley and made these turns. And the guy that was attempting assassination tried to commit suicide and jumped in the river, but it was a drought, so the river was dry. And the other guy tried to shoot a cyanide pill. It was stale, so it just gave him an upset stomach. And then you've got the other guy went to a bar just to drink, and then the driver was going along the street and had a tire blowout just in front of the restaurant or the bar where the guy was having a drink. He came out and he saw him, and he shot Ferdinand and his wife. It's like, if you put that into a fiction story, nobody would believe it, but that's real life. That's what actually happened. So there's that fact as well on, fiction versus nonfiction, how they weave such a tight, relationship.
Yeah. I think the same applies with movies. Sometimes you watch movies and the first thing that comes to my mind, and I'm very picky, I must watch, and I'm very very choosy, but each week I must watch one movie. So, but once I come across a title, then I read the description. I'm like, okay, it's saying it's fiction. And then as you watch the movie, it's like, wait, no, these things happen in real life.
Mm-hmm.
This is your reality.
Yeah. I read a lot of, with my podcast, I read pretty much a book a week for interviewing my guests. And there's one author named James Rassone who writes near future military science fiction. That to me is the scariest stuff that is so scary, because a lot of the technology that is used in this book is real technology, but this is just totally science fiction. But it's not. It's real life stuff. What you can do with computers, with lasers, with the guided missiles, with all these different things that can be used, controlling stuff from space. It's all real, and the defense of it. And you kind of go, oh no. And I talked to these guys. Yeah, I got this idea when I went to a convention. He goes to conventions in various places around the world. He went to one recently in somewhere in Europe, in Eastern Europe, and it was just like, he said, it's amazing what can be done right now with the military. And I thought, oh, that's fiction. He said, no, that's real. And so that's the other thing that's really scary too. You can in science fiction, you can write stories, you can pass off stories. They go, oh yeah, that's science fiction, when in actual fact it's actually nonfiction.
Yeah. See, that's that fine line I'm talking about. That's that fine line. That fine line. I'm sure there's a lot of authors, and you will know best, who will attend certain seminars or so on. They'll get this idea and they'll convert that idea into a story. I guess that's how it goes. The imagination part is how to convert that now into the storyline. But the fact remains is it's real life. As you said, this technology does exist. It is out there.
Yeah. For sure.
We look, now we'll look at what's happening in the world, with artificial intelligence. It's just boomed up, but it was something that was spoken about years ago.
Well, you've got also, you got Isaac Asimov created the original, or not the original, but some of the earliest material on artificial intelligence, and established the 3 laws for robotics. And I know Elon Musk is he attempts to maintain those three laws and what he's creating, and he says if you don't, you will have a problem with artificial intelligence getting out of control. And so his whole thing is that it's got to be programmed and made so that it's subservient to humanity and not able to advance over it and become an enemy of humanity.
The Terminator.
You got it. You got it. The Terminator.
The Terminator movies. Yeah.
Yeah. No, some of the stuff, it's and some of the value of science fiction too is that it becomes like a warning. So like dystopian futures are a warning. Like, okay, look, if you don't do something, this could be the possible outcome, and it could be predicting the near future or far future of a bad ending for humanity. So that's also a value of science fiction. But with fantasy, there you're a little bit safer to go off, and there it's more like the magic and the spiritual side of speculation. I mentioned in the email I sent you yesterday, she was originally published back in 2001, Nnedi Okorafor from Nigeria, or at least of Nigerian descent. Her parents were from Nigeria, and she was born in America. But she's created this subgenre called African futurism, and it's very popular right now. She won actually the I don't know if you've heard of it, the Wole Soyinka Prize. Is that how you pronounce it? Is that correctly? Wole Soyinka. It's for African literature. It's given, I think, once a year, something like that, to an author that really forwards the African culture. And she's a very dear friend and is one of the judges for our contest. But there, she ties in science with fantasy, and that's one of the things I like the most about I guess the whole culture is the spiritualism. You don't see it so much here in the United States, but I'm much more into that type of an approach to life, and recognizing, that. So it's, and I don't know if you've been totally Americanized or, but I hope not. But it's I think that's also an important thing that helps people stay connected to their real roots. And that's something that has been part of the shift you've seen recently in America with the recent elections and stuff. You've got, religion is making a push to, like, come on, let's recognize the fact that, religion is an important part. But with science fiction and fantasy, it gives you an opportunity, and with fantasy especially, to take issues that you see happening in society today and move them to another planet, to a different time, and discuss them. And you're not talking about, this party versus that party that you have right now. You're talking about in another world, they call them something else. You've got, in Star Trek, it's the Reds versus Blues, is what they call them there in the science fiction in the future. But you've got a way to discuss stuff and go over and hash out what are eventualities, which to me is really important with science fiction and fantasy, to be able to do that. And then to come up, how can it be resolved, and resolve them in the books or the series, and go, wow, that was really good. And that's something that you can actually do with science fiction and fantasy that you can't do with another genre, with other fiction genre. You can do nonfiction, which at best is going to say, here's what's happening right here, and you can speculate what's going to happen, or here's what happened in the past. And nonfiction, so it's, at least it's the facts as recounted by the winners. They're the ones that rewrite the history.
Yeah. The word you mentioned there, spirituality, just going back to that, like, I do feel, there's much more spirituality and going back to your roots, your ancestral roots in Africa,
For sure.
compared to the States.
Yeah.
That's just what, I've evaluated for myself. as far as getting synced into Americanism, as you would like to say it, I guess for me, with growing my career and especially as a musician, being more involved in the American circle worked more for me, looking out of the
Yeah,
border that way, So, but I'm also very spiritual, going down my own
that's
spiritual
good
journey. There's a lot to be found and evaluated, and it's a journey that just never ends.
for sure.
And I feel like, as a creative, like going down that road, some way, somehow, the signs are all around us, even if it's in our dreams that guides us on, whatever project we might be in, or what you're going to be writing next, or what your next musical composition is going to be about next. The guidance sort of comes down when you're going down that route.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So,
And one thing too, so I think that's important, and it's, with what you do with your music, with just the aesthetics of the arts, if you're steeped in a philosophy that, you only go around once, and so go for all the gusto you can get, that's, I mean, it's not my thing, that, you're going to, it's not a crime if you don't get caught type mentality, which is not, that's not my thing, because you have to live with yourself and your own connection with whatever you consider as a creator or a maker or spirituality. But and that's one thing too with Writers of the Future. This is the book that's out now. This is volume 40, and over the years we've had unfortunately only 4 winners from Africa, 3 from South Africa and 1 from Nigeria. And I'm hoping that from talking with you and hopefully others like you, that more creative people who are either aspiring as a writer, and we've had 1 writer winner from Nigeria, that was Walter Emeka Dinjos. He unfortunately passed away the year after he won. He had an issue with, I guess, diabetes, whatever it was, and the technology wasn't sufficient there in his community to deal with it, which wouldn't have been a problem probably in Cape Town or in Midrand, but it was, and so he didn't survive. He was such a nice young man. But then we've had 3 illustrator winners as well. One in 2008, William Rulig, and then from Pretoria, and then Ryan Downing in 2011 from Midrand, and then Stephen Spinas from Cape Town in 2021. So we have people entering, but this is just a message to anybody who's an aspiring writer or artist, someone and it doesn't matter how old you are. It's just you can't be professional. And it's defined on the website, writersofthefuture.com, what that definition is. But a winner, and we have 12 writer winners and 12 artist winners every year, and they're flown to Hollywood. They have a week-long workshop, and the contest, Mr. Hubbard endowed the contest and has been doing it. He passed away in 1986, but he put it in his will to continue endowing the contest. So every year, anybody can enter the contest. It goes on. There's 4 individual contests every year. Each one is 3 months. It's free to enter. You can upload your story or your art on the website, and you maintain the rights to your work. Nobody, you always maintain the rights to your work. It gets submitted, it gets judged. It's blind judge, so the judges will go through, and all they see is your story or your art and a number. They have no idea if you're male, female, sex, nationality, ethnic, religion, anything. All they know is your story or your art, and that's what they judge. And then we find out when they say, okay, so this quarter it's number 256, 827, and 36 are the winners. Then we find out who and what they are and where they're from. So the contest flies them out. They pay for the flight. We pay for the hotel in Hollywood, a very nice hotel here. They get a week-long workshop with some of the biggest names in science fiction and fantasy teaching it. And then we have a big Hollywood gala that is considered the Oscars of science fiction and fantasy. It's so fancy. We have like between 20 and 30 media outlets come there and cover it. and the big authors are the ones that present the awards to the winners. And it's broadcast. It's seen internationally by over 1 million people. It's quite a deal. And then they're flown home, but they're also published, like I said, in each year's anthology. This year being volume 40, and it's we were running about a 62% of we were running at 62% of winners over the 40 years have gone on to further career as a writer or an artist, which is the highest of anything out there that helps. So that's something that we've got, and hopefully we've got listeners on your show that are also artists and writers that feel like they've got something to say but don't know how they can get themselves heard. Well, this is an opportunity. And it's something that even with your just honorable mention, if you put that in your pitch letter when you write stories and send them to editors, they'll take you out of the slush pile, because this contest is so well known internationally that, okay, if somebody's an honorable mention or a finalist or a winner in Writers of the Future, then we know that they're minimally the top 10% of writers in the world. So that of English science fiction and fantasy. So it's for people that write, English for the writing contest and illustrating contest. It's just anything science fiction or fantasy. It doesn't matter if you speak English or not.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like, this is
It's
amazing.
amazing.
This is absolutely
it really is
amazing.
Yes.
What you guys are doing.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, honestly speaking, it's the first time I hear about such a contest, and I'm blown away by it. I'm really blown away by it. And I'm going to do my best to get that message out to as much people as I can.
I appreciate
because
that.
even though I've been involved in music for bulk of my life, there's this, like, aspiring writers, especially like within my local community, but that have like approached me, because ideally one of my, so the third party publisher that I use, or distributor that I use for my music, also distributes ebooks that can be converted into physical books. But to do these things these days, it's not so hard. It's cheaper than than ever used to be. And they reach out. And of course, you never know which direction to actually point them. Like, okay, I can point a musician which direction to go. But now, from what you've just said and what you just shared, I mean, this is an amazing opportunity for writers in South Africa and all around the world. Like, why not give it a shot? Like, it's amazing.
Exactly. And the basic thing is you have nothing
wow.
to lose and everything to gain, because it's free to enter. And you can enter 4 times a year. You can write a story and submit it each quarter. And again, it's writersofthefuture.com, which has everything on it. So you've got the writing contest, how to enter and what the rules are, the illustrating contest. We have a free online writing workshop that goes over all the pieces of writing a short story, of writing any story, how to begin a story, how to create suspense, how to handle dialogue, how to make the story keep moving, how to finish a story, all these different pieces of videos of like us talking to each other. It's like the judge is talking to you, telling you how you do it. Like the guy that wrote Ender's Game, Orson Scott Card, has several videos in there. The guy that wrote On Stranger Tides, the Johnny Depp movie, Pirates of the Caribbean. He's got videos in there too. So we've got that caliber of author who are our contest judges are the ones that are giving their little lectures and talks about how to write a story. So it's something that, and then Mr. Hubbard was one of the most popular writers in the 1930s and 40s, and he published over 200 fiction, Western, mystery, adventure, science fiction, fantasy, air adventure, military adventure, sea adventure. There's all types of, and even some romance based on a challenge that he could do it. And so he did that too. And he used 15 different pen names. Sometimes he had magazines at that time, pulp fiction magazines, with 3 of his stories in there using different names. So it's a contest that we really want to help the person. And everything on that website, writersofthefuture.com, is is free. So like I said, you've got then that free online writing workshop. All my episodes on the podcast are on there. It's like over 300 episodes, and they're all geared towards helping a writer, give you inspiration and tips. So like you find maybe you're very interested in a favorite writer of yours. Okay, well, I'll interview them and I'll talk about their career before they were this famous person here, because everybody starts at the beginning. You don't know, that what they went through to get. You have no idea what they went through. Like yourself as an artist, you play what musician, are you a vocalist or you play an instrument?
I don't really play an instrument. I am a music producer, but with the technology out there today, that's where we mostly base. But part of my team do play certain instruments, and then we just put it all together, to complete our composition.
Yeah, so somebody's not going to all of a sudden, okay, I'm going to buy a set of drums, and here I am. Here I'm like this hot shot drummer now. You need to work at it. It's the same thing at writing or illustration. You need to start. You need to learn language. You need to learn grammar. You need to learn how to put a sentence together. You need to learn how to tell a story and put a story down. And you need to practice. And so some of the greats say you need to throw away your first 500,000 words or your first 1,000,000 words before you build your own voice. Because at the beginning, you're going to copy. As a musician, you're going to copy your favorite musician. You learn the chords on the guitar of your favorite song. And then you get to where you can play that. And all of a sudden, I can really play this drum solo from my favorite drummer. Well, that's how you learn, But then at some point, you stop copying and start creating. And that's the same thing applies to writing stories or illustrating pictures. You need to practice. The painting behind you, the artist created that, and others look, well, that's amazing. They will try to copy that to begin with, and then they'll build their own style, their own way of doing it, and then they'll then go off on their own and create their own art. But it's like on anything in the arts, how you grow. So don't think that just because you've written a story that'll be good at all. It won't. Your first story.
I mean, anything you do in your life, practice makes perfect, and you have to start somewhere, and then you will have to learn as you move along. You are going to make mistakes. You are going to fail. You are going to be your worst critic, but you have to keep going because, you do one thing, as you continue to go and you keep up the consistency, you're going to realize that you're just going to keep getting better and better and better. I've always been in love with music my whole life. I started off as a DJ. And then when I went professional as a DJ, and then I started pushing out all my mixes, from back in school, college, and then, into adulthood. But if you had to listen to the first mix I put together 10 years ago versus a mix that I'm doing now, you're going to be like, whoa, this can't be you. Same goes for writing. If you had to look at the first book or the first blog you ever did versus 10 years later, what you're doing now, because of that consistency, there's a complete difference. Like myself being a producer, within the music industry, the people get confused between what is a composer and what is a producer. Now, me being a producer, I have to bring the vision. So I can have one guy who's going to be, okay, you on the keyboard, one guy's on the guitar. Of course, we're using technology in between, but I have to put it together to finalize, the final product, the end product that we're actually going to push out to market. And that also takes a lot of practice, in putting all that together. So anything you do, you just have to keep practicing at it, even as a writer.
And one other element too, and we run this a lot, is that it's a fate of a true creative, is that you can have a tendency to have life suckers stick themselves to you. They get on there and they'll tell you, really? That's the best you can do? And artists have to learn to live with that, but you also need to learn how to recognize those people and get them off your lines. You need to not have them as your friends, because they're not. They're 100%. Like I said, I call them as life suckers. They'll just they make you feel like why am I even doing this? You talk to them and you feel a little bit worse after the conversation. No, I'm just trying to help you. I'm just trying to be a helpful friend, and I think you need to practice a bit more, and you get these little things that all of a sudden when you leave the conversation, you're like, am I really on the right trail? So you need to also build yourself a team of people that will encourage you, that aren't going to like knock
Yeah.
you down or little tink tink tink, to kind of like make you not feel quite so good about your music or your writing or your art or whatever you're doing as a creative. And when you like for storytelling, maybe it's the same way also with what you do, but in writers, you've got to learn to build a thick skin pretty fast, because you're going to get a lot of rejects. There's over 3 million stories published every year. 3 million a year. That's a lot. So to get your voice heard, to get, and the number of magazines that publish short stories, the number of publishing houses that will publish a book, or the number of readers that you can get to read your book if you're going to self-publish, results in a lot of rejects coming. And so if you're such that that you can't handle a reject, then you need to deal with that so that you can keep on persisting. And we used to have, he passed away some years ago, but he was an editor, and he would be a guest speaker at our workshop, and he would talk to the winners and say, okay, look at, give up. This is the height of your career. You're never going to go beyond this point. Just enjoy it, take it for what it is, and just then go home and go back to your regular job. And after I said, why do you do that? He said, if someone they don't even know can tell them to quit and give up, they don't have what it's going to take.
Yeah.
You need to have, you as an author, as a musician, as an artist, it has to be, you can't not write. You can't not create your art or your music. It's in your blood. You're just like, I'd rather write than do my 9 to 5, or I'd rather write than play video games or watch movies. I can't not write. I can't not create my music. I can't not paint or illustrate. And it's that kind of mentality you have to have and build. And that's what the greats have, is they can't not do it, and you find that you learn what their journey was. And it's like, oh my gosh, I'm just like, sometimes I'm driven to tears when I learn people's stories that they went through to finally get their break. And it's just like, wow. And even when he makes a break, like the recent stuff like with Justin Bieber, that people have had like, oh, Bieber this, Bieber that. But now it's like it's changed when they find out what he went through when he got brought down to America, and the crowd he got put into got him on drugs, got him like abused him sexually, and just like, and now that's coming out, it's like, wow, it's like, what will people will go through. Elton John did. I listened to his audiobook a few years ago, and when he got addicted to cocaine, what it was like when he's doing all the different things, and then his friends, got him addicted to cocaine. You see these musicians and these people, they don't know how to deal with different things, and it's a rough world in the stratosphere. So it's important that a person be grounded, have a good team, a good group of people. And that's one thing too that we're very proud of Writers and Illustrators of the Future on, because we're family, so no matter how bad, I have people as guests on my podcast. We book them on radio and TV. They go back to volume 1. If there's still one, I find out somebody's come with a new book. Hey, you want to be on a show? And we'll help them to do that. They'll talk about Writers of the Future or Illustrators of the Future, but we want them to succeed. And that you're with a group of people that really respect the arts, respect science fiction, fantasy. L. Ron Hubbard picked on this because he referred to science fiction as the herald of possibility. And so many times we've had guest speakers at our Writers of the Future galas who were astronauts, were the engineers that put the rover on Mars, who helped create the spaceships going up. And they said, I was inspired by reading science fiction. This is what made me think, I wonder if I can do this. How can I do that? And that's what it is, So we want to encourage it. We want to get people to do it. And we don't publish messages. We don't do things where someone's trying to create their message of, a big thing that happened recently in America is woke, just the whole thing of getting rid of tradition of religion, of spirituality, and more towards going like, you are what you feel, so let's do gender transition and you see these science fiction stories and fantasy stories pushing that, and like, that's not what this is. This is straight, good old science fiction and fantasy that we promote and that we publish here, and it's appropriate. Middle school on up can read it, but they're very, they can be very deep subjects that we talk about in the stories, but they're not. Our only message is good science fiction and fantasy and celebration of the arts.
Yeah. When you were talking about, the whole thing about friends, it reminded me of a post I saw from J.K. Rowling once about, I can't remember the number, but how many times she was actually turned down for the Harry Potter series. But
Yep.
she still continued. She
Yeah.
was like, persistent in getting this out there. And I mean, look how it blew up for her. Look at how it blew up for her.
And she definitely had attackers. She definitely had people, and
yeah.
I've heard
She still has attackers. I mean, if you like on Twitter, she still has attackers, because of her views. But yeah, sorry, but as you were saying.
Yeah, it's absolutely that, and and one thing too. I mean, we're broadening out here a bit on this, but also as an author or as an artist, it's important too these days to build an audience, and if you're on social media, which is the main way to be able to do it, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, different age groups have different platforms, they like YouTube, that they prefer. And the more you have that, the more that you can, when you come out with a book or your art, that you have people that want to get it, and so that's important too, to have that base that you build, and realize that if you're going to go political on your social media, you're automatically going to cut off 50% of your potential audience. Because as soon as you say, I'm red, then anybody who's blue will say, okay, I'm done with you. Or if you say, I'm blue, then anybody who's red will say, I'm done with you. And if you say, I'm red or blue, then they both think, okay, you're lame and nobody wants you. Oh, you just stay clear of it. You don't get into, if you really are intent in making it as a writer or as an artist, you don't go politics, you don't go religion. And that's why in America, you see people go dogs, they go cats, they go, there's nobody's gonna have a problem with cats or dogs. Or here you see a lot of food stuff. I mean, I did a thing once way back, I don't do anymore, where I posted a picture of me because I host the Hollywood Christmas parade. So there's a picture of me with a very famous Democratic figure. And then the people that were Republicans said, what are you doing with him? And then there's a picture of a very well-known Republican person doing interviews at one of our parties. And they said, what is she doing there? What are you doing with them? And it's like, okay, I'm done. I've done both sides. It didn't really matter. So if you're about the arts, if you have to have some place to talk about your own personal things, and have a separate private page that you invite only to your friends, and realize too that friends aren't always going to be your friends. And as soon as they turn, they're going to say, "Oh no, you don't know any of these tell-all books that come out in Hollywood about, somebody who's you're writing a book on. This is a tell-all book about Joe Blow or Mary May." You know,
Yeah, yeah,
they're going
yeah,
to let it known. So just realize that's going to be it will never happen to me. It wasn't going to happen to them either. So just on social media, just keep it about your art, about things that are okay to talk about socially. It's just it'll make a world of difference for you as you grow at your career.
yeah. On that note, there's a few associates of mine. What we're attempting to do, like on that topic, is to get people to realize that whether you want to be red or whether you want to be blue, at the end of the day, we still one. We're still human. We may be different parts of the world. We may have different beliefs, different opinions, but we're still human, and we should respect each other's views or opinions. So if I'm
Right.
supporting red and you supporting blue, it doesn't mean that we can't have a civil conversation with each other, or we can't support each other with whatever our objectives or our dreams are for our life. So we're just
For
trying
sure.
to we creating this panel of all these associates just to push this message further. you know
Yeah.
just because we have different religious views or political views, worldly views, global warming views, whatever, we can still respect each other as humans. We don't need to kill each other over it. There's so many people out there, like I'm talking about South Africa now, geographically, who, you know, we have different opinions, when it comes to the music industry or what's happening in the country, but we still find a way to work with each other. We can have
Which
our
is
views,
great.
have our arguments, but we'll end up laughing about it. Let's just get, the task at hand done. So we're trying to push that message further that, look, it's, team human, is what one author said. That actually came up the idea is team human. We all one, let's
Hmm.
just be one. Let's not be like manipulated or brainwashed that we're not, because that's what the powers of the world actually want us to do. They want us to rather fight with each other than be at peace with each other, play it on both ends, and boom, that's how you're always going to need someone at the top, someone in charge, and you're going to always have some form of leadership structure at the top. So we working on that. We're working on that. Like we want to, like even on the podcast, like I've had so many guests where we'll have different opinions, but we still have a civil conversation and we're still laughing about it. Like
Yeah.
that's what I want for humanity as a whole. And I feel like creatives, whether you're an author, whether you're a musician, whether you're a painter, like I feel that responsibility is on us. That's why we've been given this gift from birth.
Yeah.
Whether you want to call it an ancestral gift, a gift from God, whatever your beliefs may be, because as creatives, we have so much influence over society. So much influence over society, whether it's from a book, whether it's from a blog, from a magazine, from music, we have so much influence. Hence why
Mhm.
politicians will always call in some, artists whose mainstream is well known to endorse them because they know of that influence. Doesn't always
Right.
work, but they know the power it actually holds. If I'm an artist, I'm an author, and I got, say, 2 million followers that absolutely love my work, and I say, yo, I'm voting for party A, oh, yeah, Kino's voting for party A or John is voting for party A, so we also going to vote for party A, you know? So yeah, we're also just attempting just to close that gap. Have your views, have
Yeah.
your opinions. I'll respect you, you respect me. You know, let's get along.
Which is which is which is a very good as I can have a conversation with you, and I could probably even go more, into different um, specifics on things, the blue versus red.
Yeah.
But maybe it's not that way in South Africa, but here in America, you've got these. They're called trolls. These are these guys that they don't have a face. They've got an emoji. They've got they got this other caricature that they created for themselves. And it may not even be their real name, but they go around looking for fights and they gang up on people. and they just post the most insidious, hateful comments. And it can be very hurtful. And so because I've seen some of my writer winners and judges will post their comments about something, and then it's just like piranhas just go, on them.
Yeah.
And if you try to comment back at them, that's what they want. They're trying to dangle these things in front of you for you to as bait, and then you go for it, and then they'll just go on. They all clamor all over you, and that's an unfortunate thing too. And creatives, people that have a big audience or big following, because what these wannabes want to have in the way social media works, if you've got like 1 million followers and you say something, and I come to you and say, "Oh, you're a lunatic, you're crazy. That's just so wrong." And for you to think that, what kind of drugs are you taking? And now if you respond to that, your 1 million followers are now open to me. So now I can grow my page because you've just commented, and now we're connected. If you don't respond, then it doesn't go anywhere. But if you respond, then that's how I can grow my following, by being somebody who's argumentative and wants to fight. And then someone else, okay, this guy, he's fun. He goes in there and let's see what kind of trouble he can stir up with somebody else. And so he'll follow people and he'll get people. And you see people on YouTube, on TikTok, where they make their little videos and do these things that are just that can be very hurtful. Or they're following themselves, going around yelling at celebrities or yelling at political people at rallies and parties and stuff. They do that because when they get viewers, they get paid based on the number of views they get. So they get paid by YouTube or by TikTok or by whatever as a creator. So that's also something that people need to watch for. That on social media, you need to know what you're getting into when you get into it. And if you're going to take on something that you might be doing yourself a disservice in the name of trying to be social, so I'd have no problem talking to you if you said, look at, that, I think that that flower arrangement behind you is the most disgusting looking thing I've ever seen in my life. And I can go, and tell you what it was, and then where it came from. And you go, oh, that's pretty cool, because that's been made. This is a table dressing at our gala with this book cover, which was the theme of the whole thing. So the whole auditorium was set up with all the tables, had that's the flower arrangement that was done for a thing. So you go, oh, that's pretty cool. And all of a sudden, by discussion, you can change your mind. But some of these people out there aren't into the discussion part. They don't want to get past the hate part and leave it with that. And that's what we find here, in, at least in America. And I've seen it also in UK when I've done stuff there in UK. Germany definitely has it. So some of the EU countries.
It is globally. Yeah, it's a global issue, It's globally.
Yeah.
Especially, with social media being, international, it's a global thing. It's happening in every country.
But with what we're doing right now, I don't know what your listenership is, but like on my podcast, I stably am over 120 up to 170 countries, but stably over 120 countries. I've got listeners on the podcast. Writers of the Future contest has entries from over 175 countries now. So hopefully, as a result of your podcast, we get a lot more entries from South Africa. But also, if you reach further in throughout the continent, we get more people submitting from there. Or because it's a podcast, it's going to be you've got musicians. I imagine is one of your, or people enjoying music is one of your big audiences. But them being creatives will also be connected to writers and artists. Just that's the nature of creatives. They connect with other creatives. So hopefully we'll get more people from elsewhere, and we'll be able to fly people to Hollywood.
Yeah,
And just if you're a winner, because I've had 4 winners from South Africa, I've been able to fly one of them up because the other 3 couldn't get visas because they were single men, living in their country, and so I couldn't get visas for them. So get married, go to college, have a permanent job that that the government knows you're going to want to come home, so that they don't think you're just going to flee the country when you get to America. And that's been the only problem we've had getting people up from South Africa.
Wow, I never even know that was a thing. That if you're
Yeah.
single, it's harder to get a visa. Never even know that. Now I do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why are you going to
No.
America? I won a contest. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
But like if you like just for interest sake, if you actually provide all the information like on a letterhead and signed off, does this still become like an issue like with the embassies here for that individual to get a visa?
Yeah, we've done that, and we've got we tried for a couple of years for Steven Spinas. He won in volume 37, which is in 2021. We tried for 2 or 3 years and we couldn't get a visa because he's a single guy, and in Cape Town. Walter Dinjos, he was in 2017, volume 33, and we couldn't get a visa for him. He was single, even though we sent the letter, the official letter, because we do that anytime we have a winner from outside the United States. We'll send an official letter from our letterhead, and we'll work with them. We had a girl last year who won. That was from some European country. Couldn't get a visa because she was single, didn't have a job, wasn't in college, just was there with her mom, and they said no. So she then signed up for college. She's going to college. Now she's getting a visa because she's got some type of connection there in her country. So now she'll come this year to the awards gala. We're able to get a visa for her. So we'll definitely work with people. And then also, if a person's in the military and then they can't get off, then we'll say, okay, well then when you're out of the military, you'll come. Or if it's a female and she's pregnant, okay, wait. So next year, once you've had your child and you've gone through the first, however long with your child, then we'll fly you out, after that. So we'll also work with people too. So we have visa issues, pregnancy issues, military issues. If there's things that happen like that, or if a person's got it, they're brand new at a major job, so I can't get off. Can I come next year once I've been on job for a year? I said, sure, we'll fly out in a year later. So we'll do that.
Yeah. I wonder if like even if you're single, but if you have like even like a registered business, like whether that will pull, have some weight with regards to a visa. So yeah, but I mean, look.
Probably then, but the main thing is you're
listeners,
coming out because you won a contest. There's that.
Yeah.
They
You're actually
got
being
really.
invited to come out. You're actually being invited,
So the reason why they're coming out there, so it's not a work visa. We had, interestingly enough, though, last year, the year before, we had 2 winners from Costa Rica for the first time, and when they went to get their visas, it was like they went and showed, and then they were being challenged and questioned on it. And one of them, because they went at different times, one of them went and showed the person and showed, okay, well, let me see the letter. And the person said, Illustrates the Future? And I said, you won Illustrates the Future? Oh, that's amazing. And stamped it. And they were a follower of the contest and that whole thing and totally knew what it was. And it was in itself made a great story that he got an instant approval on his visa because they were familiar with the contest and what it was. And it was such an honor for their country that they had winners from Costa Rica. So that was pretty cool on that.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, I've learned something there. I did not know that single part. I did really not know that single part. Yeah. Okay. So there's a few questions. It's crazy how this conversation goes, like that's why I like it to be organic, like my podcast to be organic. But just on the podcast, like when you mentioned, people who like want to listen to music, tune into a podcast. So this podcast is designed mainly for creatives. So when I was building myself up in the independent music space, I saw the flaws, I saw the corruption, and I wanted to fix those things, and I wanted to assist people. And it started for me when COVID hit, and then I started educating myself outside the South African borders, and then I started associating myself with more artists from the States. That's how I managed to just climb. Not staying limited to the borders, because I know how selfish the industry, internally can be. And like my main goal is to change that in the independent space, being a consultant for the independent artists who have no direction, because you're not getting the direction from the artists in the country itself.
Right.
So it's also, one of those, challenges that many face, especially in the lower and middle class of South Africa. And I'm sure globally, as well, like which direction to go, because, I'm in a situation where I deal with artists who don't even have great network or can't afford data. They don't have those basic resources to actually assist them in their career. And that's where I come in. So the podcast is aimed more at creatives, whatever type of creative you may be, because even though one can be a musician, one can be an author, when it comes to the lessons and advice that I can give, or you as John can give, it is quite similar. It is quite similar, like how you were talking about, the people in the circle and the people in your friends who tell you, oh, no, that's good enough. The only reason those people tell you that is because they are not capable enough of doing it themselves, and they're scared of you actually achieving it. They're scared. I look back at my life. You actually gave me some throwback memories about, the friends I used to have who said, oh, it's a waste of time. Why do it? Or when I was first, putting my mixes together and I couldn't afford the best equipment, so I was utilizing what I did have. And I remember people should laugh at it. But, I knew this was a passion. This is something I'm going to do with my life. Yes, there were setbacks. And there was a lot of years that I had to just push it aside, but I never give up on the goal. So I'm dealing with that sort of mentality still in 2024. There's a lot that still needs to happen, a lot that still needs to be changed. And the only way we can do this is, by guys like us coming on a podcast and listening. Pushing the podcast to as much people as I can. Listen to this. And slowly, gradually, it's working. It's just like a flip, a change of mindset that really needs to happen. And yes, I can. Let me look at what I have in front of me. If I have a piece of paper in front of me and I've got a pen in front of me, it's good enough for me to start writing if I'm an aspiring author. Let me start with that. I don't need like a fancy book. I don't need a laptop. Let me start with what I have in front of me. So that's what I tell people. Look at what you have in front of you at the moment. Look who's in your network at the moment. Work with that. And that's how you build a solid network, because that's what worked for me. I started off with one person. He said, okay, do this. I looked at what resources I had. I utilized that. That led me to meet someone else, and it was all virtual. It was online because I was dealing with people in the States. One next person, and here I am today, talking to the president of a publishing company. Who would have thought? So.
Yeah, no, that's good. We just went straight to that effect. Larry Elmore is an artist. He was one of the ones that created all the art for Dragonlance and Dungeons and Dragons. Have you ever heard of those games?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, good. So he was the artist that created it.
Yeah.
His beginning, he grew up in a state called Kentucky, a very, very poor person. His original art tools, he had a pencil that he had sharpened with a knife, and every week they'd go to the store and buy groceries and put it in a box. So the box would come back, they'd cut the box into pieces, and those pieces of the cardboard box was what he did his art on. That's all. They couldn't afford paper. That's how he got to start. And now even his sketches now will sell for $10,000. But at the beginning, that's how his beginnings were so humble. Wow. He had a pencil that he sharpened with a knife, and he wrote he did his art on cardboard boxes. And he'd write on both sides. He'd color on both. He'd draw on both sides until the box was fully illustrated. Then the next week they'd go and get another go to the grocery store again and get another box. And that's how he did his stuff. It
That's
was
emotional,
just,
man. That's emotional. Wow.
so
Oh,
you don't
yeah.
need to have your fancy equipment. You don't need to have this $2,000 iPad, and you don't need to have all these, you don't need the latest Mac to be able to type your
Yeah, yeah.
letters. Really, it's like, so many of these, your favorite
Um,
authors began writing on a pad, or they found some broken down Smith Corona manual typewriter they started with, and
yeah.
it's like their passion was senior, and that's the main thing. Your passion was senior, and that's important, but it's also your passion can get stepped on, by friends who aren't your friends. So it is important to be able to keep yourself. It will streamline your path to success if you get them off your lines. And if it's a
Yeah.
family member, that's unfortunate.
I was just about to bring that up. It's not only friends these days, it's also family. It's
Yeah,
also family.
yeah.
So
And you
it
can
does
have,
happen.
yeah, we've had, when I've had winners from like China and from the Middle East, it's very much an ethnic thing for girls to become doctors, to become lawyers. You have to do that. You can't become an artist because you'll never make it. And so they're discouraged. They're actively discouraged by family members as well as by educators. And so the ones that make it have a real strong drive, to do it. And so it's important, like, to surround yourself by people that will like lift you up. And if you got a family that's like against it, then you need to come to grips with it and still be able to pursue your dream, however you can until you're old enough to get on your own and pursue your career.
Yeah. For my personal experience, it wasn't that, family was against it. They just didn't understand it. And they didn't
Yeah.
understand how it all actually worked. Because, especially the old school people, like, whether it be your parents or whether it be your grandparents, they came up in a different generation.
Yeah.
So that generation taught them that, okay, cool, this is what you need to do. You need to go to school. If you can afford it, you're going to go to college, you're going to go to university, you're going to get a job, get married, and, so on, so on, so on. So now when you tell them, okay, I want to do something that no one has ever done, like become an author and I want to write a book, they feel like, oh no, but how is that going to support you and how are you going to pay the bills?
Yeah.
So they don't really understand how, the industry actually works and how you're actually going to generate a revenue from it.
That's a very
But
good
the
point.
moment you start,
Very good point.
yeah, like, so to creatives out there, who will listen to this podcast, like what I did is I just had to prove it that yes, it can work, one step at a time.
Yeah.
So take
That's
whatever
true, because
people have to
your
say.
parents want you to be successful. They want you to have a good life. They don't, they don't want you to go
Yeah,
out there and then end up on the streets.
yeah. And I just realized for myself as I was moving along, after one accomplishment was met, then they finally got it. Okay, wait, this can no work. And I mean, now, there's no criticism that comes, from my family, even though, like what you said, they just wanted you to have a good life. It's not that
Yeah.
they don't love you, they just want what's best for you. But, now I can like proudly say, that they do get it and that you got their full support on it.
Yeah,
So
we've
it
had
is
several
possible.
winners over the years. When they get published in here, they like, yeah, okay, fine. You want to be a writer? Yeah, you want to write your stories. And then when they find themselves getting published in this book, then all of a sudden their spouse or their parents go, "Wow, maybe you do have something there," And so then all of a sudden they have a change of heart.
Yeah.
This is a very popular, very famous book, and if winners on this are renowned for being the top names in science fiction and fantasy these days.
Yeah. Actually, one of the questions I had for you, I was saying before we got into what the Kino as a podcast was about, it's so crazy how, like I can have like a list of questions like I really want to ask the person, but like how we just get caught up in the conversation. It just, You don't get to the question, and now you're 1 hour in, and you're like, wait, I wanted to ask John this. So, like, I mean, even with Galaxy Express, like, I'm sure you must have also had your challenges as well, in building it and building the brand. So one of the questions I wanted to ask you, briefly, you can explain, your journey with Galaxy Express.
Sure.
How did it
so
start?
The way it works,
why did you want to be a publisher?
Yeah, it's Galaxy Press, like a publishing press, and so the way it started for Galaxy Press was I was originally at a publishing house called.
1 second? I just want to correct myself there. I said Express instead of Press, so it's Galaxy Press.
Right.
Right, Galaxy Press. Right, cool.
Okay, good. So when I originally started in publishing back in 1986, when you were still a twinkle in your parents' sky, and so it was I've done almost every type of job in a publishing house. I've done marketing, I've done PR, I've done some finance, collections, manufacturing, all types of stuff. And then we published all the fiction and nonfiction works of L. Ron Hubbard. So he had recently written and published a book called Battlefield Earth, which multiple New York Times bestseller. Then he had another book called Mission Earth, 10 books. All 10 of them were also New York Times bestsellers. But he also wrote a book called Dianetics in 1950, which had also been a multiple New York Times bestseller. In fact, in 1986 and 1988, it was 100 weeks on the New York Times, and it topped at #1 on the New York Times back in 1988. So
was the same one related to mental health?
Yeah, that's the Dynamics of Modern Science and Mental Health.
Yeah. That was also something I wanted to bring up.
Yeah, so he's the author of that book, and he also is the creator of the books on Scientology. So he wrote, all those. And so I was doing PR for the fiction and nonfiction, and it gets confusing. Like, well, what did he write? He wrote science fiction. He wrote westerns. He wrote fantasy. He wrote mystery. He wrote air adventure, sea adventure, military fiction. Yeah. He also wrote the most popular self-help book of all time. He also wrote books that created the fastest growing religion of the 20th century. And they kind of go, huh? So what we did is in 2002, we separated out. So Bridge Publications continued publishing all the nonfiction works, the Dianetics and Scientology books, and Galaxy Press was started to publish all the fiction works, which includes Writers of the Future, all the original pulp fiction stories of the 30s and 40s. That's, like I said, that's a couple hundred stories, books there, and Battlefield Earth, Mission Earth, all the audio books that we do. So we've kind of split up with that. So I've been the president of Galaxy Press since 2002 and continue along that line. And I work closely with Bridge Publications, which still publishes the nonfiction works, because people will, they're familiar with the author, L. Ron Hubbard. So they'll say, what? I know that name. And sometimes they'll say, yeah, he's the guy that wrote Battlefield. He says, Dynetics, that's it. But sometimes you'll say, you wrote Dynetics, you go, Battlefield Earth. Oh, that's it. So people know him for different things. So that's kind of like how that goes. So the challenges were being able to get people to recognize the author and the type of stuff they're doing, because we'd find like the bookstores didn't know how to do it, so they put everything in science fiction, or they put everything into self-help. It's like, no, this is a Western. See, that's a cowboy on the cover there. It goes not in the self-help section. So they get confused in that. So now we split it up. So it's a lot easier. So that was one of the things to overcome. And part of it too, the pandemic was a definite thing for publishing. It was a thing for everybody. But for publishing, with the bookstores closing down, how do you get your books published? And then you had with the independent booksellers shutting down, and then the small publishers shutting down, how to get your book published. And it just became a problem. And so that's been one of the big things. It's obviously coming out of it now and coming out nicely, and more independent bookstores are are resurfacing. And like I said, there's like over 3 million books published a year because of independent publishing with Kindle, with Kindlepreneur, with on Amazon, and there's probably about 5 or 6 different platforms that an author can get their book published. And so that's made a difference. But now it's moved into, okay, with that many books, how do you get yourself seen? What do you do now? And so that's the current journey that I'm good with it, because I'm able to do lots of different media. I've got my podcasts, I got different things that have grown. But for a new writer, you know, my objective now is to help teach them this is what you can do. And it's following in the footsteps of what L. Ron Hubbard created with Writers of the Future. It's not, you know, what's in it for me. It's like, how can I help you grow? And this is something that he did when he was alive and wanted to make sure continued to happen, you know, past his you know, when he died in 1986. So that's been probably the biggest thing, is keeping up with the change of publishing. And then when I first started reading, you know, I was a kid. I used to love reading as a youngster, and I really got into science fiction when I was in college. Well, I'm long since past college days, and so biggest challenge now is, what do I do to reach that college audience? It's a different audience. Different things are important to them. For me, Vietnam was a big issue when I was growing up. I missed the draft by a month, you know, so it was a big deal in the United States. Maybe it wasn't, you know, in South Africa, but it was a big deal. So the things that were important to me are no longer important to today's youth. So staying relevant to today's youth is probably the biggest challenge. So you've got, for me, getting involved with social media, it was Facebook and YouTube. Then Twitter came along, and then Instagram, and then TikTok. Well, TikTok isn't so much my thing, but it's a definite big thing for Gen Z and Gen A, you know. But even then, while I can follow somebody talking to me for several minutes at a time, social media, if you go past 12 seconds, you're out of there, you know. So it's a whole different audience, a whole different mentality, and how do you communicate and reach that audience? That's probably the biggest challenge now, how to reach them.
Yeah, I guess, you know what, that's the biggest challenge for any sort of independent artist right now at the moment, is how do we reach that audience? And, you know, back in the day, you could write the book and then you hand it over to the publishing company. The editor will do what he does, and boom, that was it. You know, you'll collect your paycheck, you'll collect your royalties, whatever. Same worked with the music industry back in the day. But, you know, you never owned your work, you know. And I'm sure there's some authors who have passed away who still don't own all of their work, you know. And there's still money being made from their work in 2024. So in 2024 now, you have to really self-educate yourself, and you really have to do it all. You know, you have to do it all. You have to be your own PR. You have to be your own marketing manager. You know, like, I'm going to use terms like in the music industry, you have to be your own record label. You have to be your own distributor. You have to do it all. You have to be your own, you know, booking manager. Into, like, you know, you have to reach out to people, like, at least you know, you got a publicist and so on. If you can afford to have those things, you need those things now. And what I've evaluated for myself with social media and what I share with artists is, look at what the data is telling you. Okay, because the data is really important. So if your book or your music is online, look at what the data is telling you. If you are getting more sales in Zimbabwe, for example, stop trying to focus your attention in Canada, even though, you know, you have a liking for Canada. If you have more of an interest in Zimbabwe, focus on the crowd in Zimbabwe. Then you need to diversify your work now in that specific demographic or geographic. Okay. So they're interested in your book, they read your book, they love your work. Try to do like an online webinar or show for a crowd in Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
Focus on what the data, sell your stuff to the people that actually care, because 7 billion people in the world, my audience is not going to be your audience. Like I mentioned this so many times, on the podcast, because it's the same challenge that always does come up. When I'm speaking to an author, or when I'm speaking to a musician, focus on what the data is telling you and
Right.
work with that.
For sure.
Don't focus
There's
on
an
what's not
article
working
that
for you.
Yeah, there's an article that Owen Hubbard wrote that is part of the writing workshop that you can get there, which is he goes in and breaks down, because he wrote across all the genres at the time. And so he did an analysis of which genre made him the most money. It's not the one that paid the most, because maybe he'd have to write 10 stories to sell one, even though that one paid more. But other genres, he'd sell them first time out of the chute, and pay a little bit less, but he made more money on that genre. So he did his own analysis of like where what was paying him, what was keeping the lights on. And because he wrote 3 hours a day, 3 days a week, and published 100,000 words a month. So that's
Wow.
a lot of writing. He was very prolific. So he
Yeah.
really broke down and analyzed where it was coming from. So like you said, that's exactly the same concept there. Where are your listeners? Where are your people buying your whatever it is that you're selling as a creative, your art, your music, your stories, and go after that. And then their word of mouth maybe will move it someplace else. But for absolutely take where you're already popular, where you have some momentum going. There's one thing also about music, storytelling, art. Word of mouth is a major resource for you. So you take where you've already got people talking about you and go that and let them stir it up and get it even more interest and more people buying your stuff.
Yeah. And another narrative that I'm also attempting to change, and it's working gradually, small steps. And when I talk small steps, it takes years,
Yeah.
is to do that conversion in people's mind from like competition, because we live in this world where everyone just wants to compete with each other, to actually collaborating with each other.
Yeah.
So, online, find groups where you can actually interact with other authors, because they have an audience, and, they may also have a podcast or a blog where they can actually mention you. Start networking with people. You don't have
Yeah.
to always network with people that's, only within your country, your state. But look globally also, because it's online. Join these groups on social media, interact with other authors or anyone actually involved in the space. Because, as you said, word of mouth doesn't only have to happen, between us having like a chat face to face or virtually. But if an author who has a decent following, say on Twitter, for example, once you've built a good relationship with that person, he'll say, what, I want to give a shout out to someone I've just met. His name is John, or his name is Kino. He's just released this book. Give it a look. That also works. So stop being that type of person. Okay, now I'm going to put, my project together, whether it be a music project, whether it be a book, and I would be like, okay, I'm going to compete now with all the other authors, within that specific genre. No, learn to collaborate with them, network. That's where we
Yeah,
have
that
to
just
go.
reminds me. I was walking through the WritersOfTheFuture.com website. We have another feature there called the Forum. The Forum is one best science fiction forum for the last 3 years. It's free to join as well. You can also just go there and just snoop around and have a look without joining it, just to see what it is, before you join. But there you can find other like-minded individuals, as creatives. And if you have a story idea, you can say, look at, so I'm kind of new to this, and I've got this one idea, and people will communicate with you. They'll actually, they'll cheer you on. And invariably, if someone who's in the forum actively participating and they win the contest, everybody takes a win on it, because it's like, yay, another person made it, because that's an objective they're going for. And it's also we've had 5 or 6 people where English was a second language, where they would enter the contest, but they go to the forum, and the forum people would help them on handling idioms and certain things they're trying to say. How do I say this? Or because if you're, heaven forbid, you're just using Google Translate to translate your story, that's not going to work, But then you'll have people that will help you. And the only rule for the forum is that if you go in there and you're critical, if you're just coming in to be critical, you're given one warning. If you do it again, you're kicked out of the forum and you're not allowed back in. That's not what this is. If you want to go someplace where you can be critical, there's plenty of places for that. You can go to any social media platform, but this one here, this is just for the creatives to help encourage them, and that's what the Writers of the Future Forum is all about. So you can go there and get that as well.
Yeah, no, definitely we need that. We need more of that. And what's also become hard about social media, what people need to understand is that social media, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, it's a business. So you may have, say, maybe 10,000 followers, whether it be on your Facebook page or on your personal account, if you're a digital creator. But keep in mind that when you post something, Facebook is not showing your content to all of those people, 10,000 people. They're showing it to about 10% of that.
Not even anymore here. It's even less than that.
People,
yeah.
Because they want you to invest in ads, any platform you go to. Unfortunately, not everybody can afford to invest in ads. So such things as forums and what, you have to offer is your options to actually go to. So
and TikTok is still like that. So TikTok, you can still do organic.
Yeah, you can still do it.
For how long, I don't know, but right now it still is.
Yeah. Another suggestion is, there is so much platforms out there. You need to stick on the platforms that actually do work for you.
Yeah.
Like I remember, I should test out each platform, during that COVID period, I was just testing out each platform. Oh, this is new. Okay, let me tell. And I was signing up. And it took me about 2 years being on all of these platforms to look like, okay, you know what? This works for me. This doesn't work for me. I should also do TikToks, I should come out. I should say, always keeping it positive, talking about the music industry and just about life in general, because there was so much people that were out there that were going through these negative, overwhelming emotions and feelings. It's COVID, it's lockdown. What's going to happen to us? The world is coming to an end, all of those things. And then as I moved into 2021 and then I started podcasting, I thought to myself, TikTok is not really working for me. Facebook is working for me more. Instagram is working for me more. I'm fresh on YouTube. The podcast grew more on Spotify for me. So you'll even notice when I send you the links, I always start with Spotify video first, because that's where my podcast has grown more, and my music as well. So it works for me more there. Now I've recently just, started off a YouTube channel, and then I'm going to see how that takes off. So see what platform also works for you, to market your work and to interact with people, whether a musician or author, actually anyone, who wants that advice for social media, who can't afford ads. And ads always don't work all the time. And also you have to be strategic with your ads. For authors out there or any creative who wants to utilize ads, don't just go create an ad and submit, because Facebook is going to show it to a bunch of random people that don't care about your work. You need to be strategic about it. You need to select your demographics. If you have a favorite author, you need to select, the audience that are actually reading that author's books, because you can't do that. You need to target where you want the ad to actually be, shown to. Once it goes back to geographically, if my audience is in Zimbabwe, I need to target, maybe surrounding countries. Do research. Spend some time on research. Research these things, before you go out there and put an ad. Because I've had that experience before. I go and I create this ad for my music, and I see, okay, I'm getting over 100 likes on it. But then as I go deeper into it and I start looking at those people, I'm like, these people are not listening to my music. Facebook has just shown my stuff, I don't even know if it's real, because look, Facebook does do a lot of fake stuff. Also, people need to understand there's a dark side to it as well. But it goes back to vanity metrics as well. Okay, yeah, I got 100 likes or 1,000 likes on my post, but how much of those 1,000 people actually purchased my book or listen to my music? That's what you need to ask yourself.
Yeah.
A lot of people get excited. Oh no, vanity metrics, look, I did this ad and I posted, my new track, and there's 1,000 people who liked it. Then you go on Spotify, you look at the data on Spotify. I'm not sure where authors actually look at the data. Maybe you can share a bit on that. But then you go to Spotify and I'm like, nah, it's not matching. It's not adding up. So that's why data is so important.
Yeah. Well, that's what, if you're self-publishing and you're like on Amazon, KDP, Kindlepreneur, will have a you can go into your page and it'll have the statistics that you need to have. Ingram Spark has their thing. So whatever one you're using, if you subscribe to that platform, then they'll give you metrics, and they have different programs you can participate in to target, like you're talking about, geo-target or genre target too. So whether it's you want to hit just South Africa, or even more specifically Gauteng, or what however you want to do that, or I want people that listen to technopop, so then you can go after that. And for writers, I write science fiction, so I'll take science fiction anywhere, or military science fiction anywhere, because now, because of the internet, you're not hampered. If people are buying the ebooks, you're not hampered by going to a bookstore that has your book, because if it's online, it's anywhere that you can access that internet site. So that's the way. That's with books, how you can do it. You can target either geo, or you can target genre, or age group. You can also do age group.
No, yeah, definitely, yeah. See, so it just works, the same all the way around. So right now, at the moment, you're on volume 40. How far up are you planning to go? What's next for you? What's next for Galaxy?
Well, it's going to keep on. Right now, it's being funded into perpetuity. The only thing that potentially can be a problem down the road is AI. We've got rules that no AI. So no AI art, no AI storytelling. So right now, there's tools you can spot AI with.
Yeah.
You can tell AI art, you can tell AI storytelling. So as long as we can do that, we will continue to have the contest going. So hopefully we can stay ahead of that curve and just keep on recognizing and validating the actual storytellers, actual artists, the real people, the real creatives, not people that have learned how to do cool prompts. And based on that, it'll survive me. I came on board on volume 2 of Writers of the Future. So we're going to be publishing volume 41 this April, and we're already into the first quarter of volume 42. So because the contest runs about a little over a year in the future, so that we have a chance for the winners to be selected. We get the art, the winning. The way it works, just as a bit of that, is these covers are painted by judges, and then we send the art to one of the selected writer judges, and they write a story based on the cover art. Then we have our winners, so we have the winners. This is a story here that takes place in Africa. The artist is from Portugal.
That's cool.
It's very cool, and so the artists will all do their paintings that they submit, and they win the contest. And then the winners are paired up with the winning artists, and writers are paired up with each other. And then the book editor sends a story to one of the winning artists, and then they have to illustrate the story. And so that's what these all are. these are all the illustrations of the winning stories, and so they
Nice.
are. So those are the illustrations, and that go to the judges, and then the grand prize winner of the illustrator contest is selected out of those 12 pieces of art. So this book is published, and so all 12 writers and all 12 illustrators, and sometimes if the stories are short, we'll also publish a finalist, so we can keep the books roughly the same thickness, so that when they're stacked against each other, they all look the same. And so out of each 12 writer and each 12 illustrator, one grand prize winner is selected. So a winner is paid a prize, a contest prize for winning, and it varies anywhere between $500 to $1,000 per winner. And then when the book is published, they're paid a royalty for their work. And then one person writer, one person illustrator also wins a grand prize, which is an additional $5,000 check. And like I said, everything else, everybody's flown out to Hollywood. Everybody's is paid for their hotel. They don't have to pay for the hotel. Some of the meals are paid for, but even if a person doesn't have much money, we always provide snacks throughout the workshop, so that even if they don't have money, they still have food and water to drink and sodas. So we provide that, so no matter what, they can just focus on their workshop and their potential career. And then we have this really fancy gala, and it's a dress, and it's a black tie event, and it's pretty cool on that. But with the contest so itself, you maintain all the rights to your work. All we ask is that your story or art is published in this first, and then once we've published it here, then you can sell it however you want to, and many of them will sell it to other publications, use it for other things. And so it's something it's a real win-win for all the writers and the artists. And a lot of the writers will make friends with the judges, and the judges will help them and introduce them to other people in the industry. They'll give them blurbs for their first book. Okay, well, I'm in my books, I'll send it to my favorite author here as a judge, and they'll read it, and they'll give them the blurb that they'll put on the book to help them, fly, to help them start their
Man, I
careers as
love
a
what you
writer.
guys are doing. Honestly, like, wow.
Yeah, it's
wow.
all
Much respect. Much respect.
Yeah, and that's the genius of L. Ron Hubbard, what he was doing and stuff. And this is a real live example of what he does to help the future of creatives. This is just one example of it. That's what he does.
Yeah. Each author that I've been interviewing, and this has been going on for 3 weeks now since I started off with authors. The last question I ask is, with regards to AI. But you brought it up yourself. You have measures in place to monitor it. Because the technology is just advancing. As you said, you're a master at putting in a great prompt. Boom, here's your book. Other topics would relate to AI that have come up over the last 2 weeks is I've been seeing all these different platforms, all these technologists who are creating platforms. Oh yeah, put in a prompt, and in 5 minutes you got an ebook to sell online. So I've just been
you can't copyright it, so you can't own it, but you can sell it and hopefully get away with it. But you have on Amazon now, you have to say that this is AI generated. You have to now say that this was AI. But when I just recently interviewed somebody, I was at Frankfurt, Germany, at the Frankfurt Book Fair a few weeks ago, and I interviewed someone there who's an audiobook publisher, because audio is also that was the biggest growing format of books throughout the pandemic. And there's a new thing right now because of AI computers, synthetic voices. So you've got you got two ways to go about it. One is you can just you make up a voice that's purely synthetic, like when you've got on your computer Google, so Siri, blah blah blah, that's a synthetic voice. But you can have it where you can record an actor or a person, and they'll read a certain book. And so then you buy that and you pay them royalties anytime their voice is used in a recording. And then you've got the other thing called cloning, which is not legal. And that's where you just go and you record somebody and you turn that into, voiceover, but they didn't give their permission. And there's even where you can clone, like you take like Marilyn Monroe's voice from when she, some whatever movies, and you can take that and clone that and record something as though Marilyn Monroe was recording it. All those things are not legal, but it gets done because there's that type of people out there. They're just criminals. So that's a new thing that's happening right now in audiobook, where you've got synthetic voices and clones in addition to the real voices. Again, the main thing there is like you can tell the difference pretty easily between the synthetic voices and artificial art and AI created stories, because they're flat. Like a voice, like when you're talking, you have inflections. So I can read the same words in fear, in hostility, in apathy, and they all read differently. But a computer won't know to do that, and at least at this point. Or the AI artists, you still sometimes have 6 fingers, on the hands. And our coordinating judge for the Illustrator contest says, I can definitely see an AI art, because she's used to seeing she does all types of art. Then you can see the brush strokes in a real painting. You can see the actual work. And if there's a question, she says, okay, send me your composite file so I can see all the earlier levels of that painting. And if it's AI generated, there's only one. There's only the one file that you can see, and so it's AI generated. In a story, they're very flat. They read very flat. I don't enjoy AI stories at all, and so it's still at the stage where it's pretty easy to tell the difference. Again, we'll see what happens in a couple of years, 5 years, 10 years.
As you said, we had a stage where it's still early, but the technology is going to keep advancing. But
Sure.
hopefully the tools that are used to determine what is organic versus what is AI also keeps advancing. It's the same thing that's happened, like, within the music industry. I'm not sure. I think it's either Warner Records or Universal Records. They signed up with another technology company that, look, the music industry is going to allow AI music. Okay, it's going to allow AI music. There's also mainstream artists that are actually, renting out their vocals to be used. It's all about, how much money we can make about it, because there's a good audience growing where, they're actually listening to AI music. So what this tool is going to actually do is, if I am renting out my vocals and it is getting used, all it's going to do is going to pick up, okay, it was used on this track, and it's going to ensure that whoever that artist is does also get compensated from, the usage of their work.
Yeah, as long as the guys doing it are ethical about their use of it and pay the royalty.
Yeah. But I mean, look, when it comes to AI, I've also tested out plenty platforms. I've created music out of AI, but one thing I have done is I've been transparent about it. I've been transparent about it to tell guys, look, okay, I'm releasing this AI project. It's AI generated. I'm testing it out. I've used my own lyrics in it. I want to see what comes out of it. I'm testing the waters. I'm not just going to play it like on the organic end. Yes, bulk of our music is organic. Like, I'm also testing out the waters with it. But I'm also being creative with it. Like, I'm creating like storylines around the whole AI project. Not just, okay, I'm releasing this music and boom, that's it. I'm hoping to make a lot of money out of it. I'm like creating the storyline, with it. But I'm being transparent about it online with my audience, people that, look, it's AI generated music. So that's, one way for artists, creators to go about it. Be transparent. If you're testing out waters, cool. Be transparent. but don't enter the
Transparency is
contest
important.
now and, be dishonest about it. Don't do something like that.
Yeah, for this contest for Writers of the Future, it's about creatives. It's about people that can write and that can actually illustrate. So it'll never be something that we will appreciate AI, because that's not the purpose of the contest. The purpose is to discover new voices of science fiction and fantasy, and that voice is not ChatGPT or Claude, whatever version it's going to be. It's going to be Kino Isaac. It's going to be Mary Beth Jones. It's going to be a real person that can create stuff. You'll always have an audience for the inexpensive, for the, for the storytelling, for the art. I look at AI as, when I was in college, I could afford to pay $2 for a poster that I'd put up on my wall in my college dorm. I could afford that. I would no way would ever do something like that again. I would, if I'm gonna have art, I'm gonna have the real thing. But as a college student, high school, it's cool to be able to have, I love this painting from, some famous artist. That's pretty cool. But, I've gone, it's like the elevator music versus the real thing,
Yeah.
You grow out of that. You have a budget too that you can get the real thing. And for me, I appreciate, in high school, Annie Green's brings, wine that you could get for $1.99 a quart. There you go, And the whole game was being able to get it and to be able to pretend like I was old enough to go in there and buy it when I wasn't old enough, and get them to sell it to me, and then go back and drink it. Just, you still see the stuff floating in the bottom of the bottle. I was like, okay, here we go. It's like, I can't, it's just your taste changes, things grow, and I will always appreciate the real thing.
Yeah, no, 100%. Look, I mean, it's the emotion, it's the emotion. One AI will never get right with any form of creative work is the emotional part of it.
Yeah, well, it can't create. All it can do is copy and emulate and mix. It can be the most amazing mixer, mixologist. It could be like the super duper on mixology, but it can never create actual new music or new stories or new art. It can only take what it's
in an intimate way. It can't connect with you in an intimate way. And we're living in that era where people want intimacy with their favorite artists, whether it be a musician or be an author. They want to build an intimate relationship with you. They want to know that you are actually feeling what I am feeling right now.
Right.
So that, can't get. But as I said, we don't know what the future holds with the technology, what can come of it. We just have to be patient and wait and see it unfold, and just adapt with the times and see what's going to work, for us.
In the meantime, keep creating
agendas and work. So with regards to now with volume 41 that's coming out next April, is the contest still open for that?
No, that contest closed at the end of September. Now we're in the first quarter of year 42. So right now, 42. From October 1st to December 31st is quarter one for year 42. So that contest is going on now. So it goes from October to December, January to March, April through June, and then July through September. And those are the 4 quarters every year. And it just automatically rolls over the next one. So if you submit a story, then that time that uploads into the website is that quarter that you've entered. So if you enter right now, between now and the end of December, so you've now entered the first quarter for year 42, you can write another story and submit it January to March, and then write another story and submit it April through July, and just keep on going through. And one thing too, a lot of the winners and some of them who went on to become judges enjoy about the contest is it forces them to write to a deadline, because they know they have until the end of that quarter to submit their story, and so they'll do that, and that in itself just improves their prowess as an author or as an artist to be able to create to a deadline. Because that's one thing, once you become a professional, if you signed a contract, you got to make that contract, you got to make that deadline, and you don't want to become known as that guy that doesn't make their deadlines.
Yeah, 100%. Could I ask you a favor, if you don't mind, and it's not too much trouble, if you could just like send me an email with those dates? Because like
Yeah,
I want to promote
absolutely.
this, like I want to promote this contest, like I want to go all out with promoting. Like I'm even good friends like with the local media here, like in Johannesburg, South Africa. So like I want to share this with them, to
Good.
promote this
And
to
if you'd like,
aspiring
I'll send you an
authors to
ebook
actually
of
enter this contest, because it's phenomenal.
yeah, absolutely. I love that. And if you'd like, I'll send you an ebook of this book, and then we can either talk about this down the road, or once I have volume 41 as an advanced reading copy, I'll send that to you, and we can talk about that before it releases.
Yeah, I would love that. I would love if you could send me that, Would love. Yeah, just check it out. There was a May of let me just this was just the brochure. This was just the brochure that was sent to me. So yeah, no, I would love it if you could send me a copy of the ebook. I would love to check it out. I would definitely
Sure.
love to check it out. And I mean, I'm like, yeah, I want to promote this. Like I've said, like what you guys are doing, like much love, much respect. This is great. This is great for aspiring authors, and I just want to get this word out as far as possible.
I appreciate that very much. And again, people can find out about it listening to this podcast. It's writersofthefuture.com. And it's a one-stop shop for all things for Writers of the Future. And everything on there is free.
Perfect. Now, I will share all the links in the description of the show. And yeah, now I'm hoping something, huge can come out of this for aspiring authors. You guys are doing great.
I certainly hope so. I'd love to see somebody from South Africa making it all the way up here and meeting them.
Who's not single? Get married first. Let me put that out there before we conclude. Get married first. So you can get to Hollywood,
There we go.
Yeah, there we go. Sure. That was, I mean, that's like hilarious takeaway for me.
Yeah.
Could have never imagined that. But I guess it makes sense. It makes sense, why they would want something like that, But I guess imagine if someone is married, right? And then you get over to the States and like, okay, I'm not going home now. I'm just going to stay here. I'll just leave my wife there,
Yeah, they'll feel some reason why a person's going to come back, whether it's a good job or you're going back to your education or whatever it is, something as a bit of an anchor. If you have no anchor, I'm an artist. I've got my studio at home. You can have your studio wherever you are. So I won a contest. I'm going to America, which is true.
Yeah. Nah. Yeah. Now there's so okay, bulk of the guests on the podcast, they all from the States. I think I've only had one from the UK, not much from South Africa. So there's a rock group, they based in Miami. And they're like, Kino, you need to come through to Miami, because we brought up Miami in the conversation because of Bad Boys, the movies. And I'm always checking Miami and, the club scene and the DJs and the beach. I'm like, I want to come to Miami. So like, okay, cool. You need to come to Miami when you're here. You meet up with us. We're going to take you around. But now Kino's not married. So now I'm thinking to myself here now, okay.
Yeah, I'm going to go to Miami and meet up with my... Yeah. Just the waters and I just take a look and see and just like, I'm going to go over there with my friends that are rockers. Yeah, I'm going to go there and we're going to...
I need to have a chat to them, guys. I may have an issue here, but let's see what we can do. We may be able to work around it. Let's see what we can do.
Exactly.
But John, this has been a great conversation. Once again, I've said this is the third time saying this. I'm proud of what you're doing.
Thank you very much, Kino.
I very appreciate for authors. Really, really, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing, and we need more people like you, in the world.
Thank you. And if there's other media, you say other media. If there's anybody else that would be interested, I'm more than willing to, to provide articles, interviews, TV, radio, print, whatever it is, to be able to promote it. Because I'd love to see more. Like I really appreciate Africa in general with the spirituality, and so this type of stories that come from Africa are different, and I love them. I love stuff that like focuses on that aspect of life, which is why I like Nnedi Okorafor so much, because that's what her African futurism, because it is spirituality. It's that aspect of stuff. and it's just something I'd love to be able to see more exposure and help the artists. And one thing you'll see too, when you look at the various books, we have winners from all these different countries around the world, and it's not Marvel art or Disney art. It's like their art. So if it's from the Middle East, it looks totally different than China, looks totally different than Africa, totally different than Central America, than Mexico, than all these different countries. It's a different style of art, and they can all win. So that's what's really exciting about it too, just to expose the planet to all these different styles of art and storytelling. So that's one thing that's really great about this contest too, and why I'm so happy that you've had me as a guest.
Yeah, no, I'm also happy to have had you as a guest. I'm sure the stories and illustrations from China must be also really cool.
Yeah, they are. They are indeed.
With that culture. I mean, yeah, it must be really, really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nah, but thanks for coming on as a guest. Our journey won't end here, I'm sure of that. Like the journey never ends with any guest that I really have on the show. It never really stops because there's something afterwards, that comes up that brings us back together again. And that's what I want, just to use the podcast as well, just to build this network. Like, especially now, targeting authors now, creators in that end to come on board to get inspired either via the podcast or via, the consulting I do. But now at least, I know where to direct them.
Good,
I was telling, not sure if it was last week or the week before. But anyway, so in our local media in the town I'm from, there was a teenage girl. So she attempted to commit suicide. So on her body, there was like a lot of marks, scratches, and so on. And she's an aspiring author. So she's written, some pieces of content, but she was looking for someone to actually help her to distribute or to edit and distribute her work. So I was like, okay, cool. I know no one around is going to actually reach out. I know that for a fact, because I stay in the area. So I reached out to the family, like, okay, let's meet. Let's see like how I can assist. I'm in the music industry, but let's see where I can assist, with this. And I did reach out. The family reached back out to me. Okay, cool. We'll set up a meeting and so on. Till date, it's been 3 months. They haven't gotten back to me. So there's a lot of dealing with that sort of issues, going on. Whether it's the family, whether it's the girl, whether she's whatever she may have gone through in her life, that result in her wanting to commit suicide. Maybe she's still dealing with that mental illness. So, I deal with those, sort of situations as well. So I know for a fact there's a lot of aspiring authors out there, whether it be my local community or South Africa as a whole. So just to reach out to them, get them on board, but they also have to put in the effort.
That's right.
I can reach out and say, look, I know a guy called John. He has this contest. He does this. You can reach out to him. You can listen to his podcast and, you can take it from there for yourself. But you have to actually put in the effort to actually go and follow the links that I'm sending you to make it work for yourself.
Exactly right. It's your journey. You still need to walk.
Yeah.
You need to still take the steps.
Yeah. Kino's not going to write the book for you and send it to John. You have to do that yourself.
You're not going to give him the prompts.
Yeah, I'm just directing you.
Good.
That's it. Yeah. No, but we'll make this work. So I mean, in the email with the dates, of course, for cutters and so on, also include all the links if you can, whatever links possible that I know I can find them myself. Whatever you feel you want to include.
I'll send you the whole thing and
yeah.
And again, if you have any other media that
because
let me know, and then I will be interested to chat with you again down the road.
Yeah, no, definitely. I would love to chat again down the road, definitely. So yes, I do normally upload like on a Wednesday, or if I do the interview like on a Monday. So if you have some time, tomorrow you can send through all the stuff, and I'll just include it all in the descriptions.
I'll send it when we hang up. When we get done here, I'm going to send it to you so you've got it right away.
Okay,
you said this will go up on Wednesday.
You so much. Yeah. I normally set up on Wednesday. Because like on the Tuesday, like I work, on the description and so on. Depends on the links.
You have to edit and chop out all the little.
Yeah, but it's by latest Wednesday.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Well, what I do with the podcast, with the recording itself, I like to keep it organic. I like people to understand that, look, we're also human. Within our conversations, it's sort of pre-planned. Like there's some YouTubers that I watch, right? And I can see where they cut off. And I can see what I cut off. And the only thing going on in my curious mind is, what was cut off there? Like, I also want to see that. What was cut off there? I want to see that as well. We can't all be 100% perfect online.
Right.
And I feel for those podcasters and those YouTubers, they're in it for the money, but I want to keep like an organic relationship with my audience, because I sort of like know their sort of thinking and mindset and where they're coming from as well. But if I do the interview on a Monday, like by latest Wednesday is up. But as you said, you're sending me the links today, so from tomorrow I start working on it. And just get that up there and then start pushing it. And once it's actually uploaded, then I can actually send the link to the local media outlets to say, look, guys, please look at this. Let's use this to reach out to authors. Let's start with Joanna's.
That's the main thing is like,
well, let's just start with a local. Let's use this to reach out, because here's this contest to enter for free. Here are the dates.
Yeah.
Let's push out the article, because there is
what makes us different is that we don't take any money from the people entering the contest. This is one of those things that L. Ron Hubbard pays for the whole thing, so it's in his will. So it just continues to be done. So it's not something we're making money on this. This is something he wanted to do.
Yeah.
It's important to him to continue, creation of new storytellers. So that's what he did, and that's what we're doing. So there's no under the table things. There's nothing that the person, if I pay you this much money, will I get in the book? Nope. The judges have no idea who they're even judging. So all I see is a number. So it's funny when the winners come up to them and say afterwards, "Oh yeah, I wrote publishes." All I ever saw was a number. I didn't get a name. So nice to meet you. Finally,
Yeah. No, but much respect from that. I mean, you following instructions from a will, so the morals, principles, and values behind that. I mean, much respect for that. Much respect.
Yeah. Maybe one of these days we have another conversation talking about Dianetics too. You're asking about that. I mean, today we're out of time, but maybe another time we can talk about, Dianetics too.
Yeah, no, definitely. Because that's what I checked, especially on the mental health part. And there was a reason, like I actually wrote that down. But, we'll talk about that, another time. Because mental health is a topic that, we've been touching on a lot, with other associates on the podcast. It's really important. Yeah. So, I mean, if it's something that you are really focused on, what I'm going to do is I'm a co-host on a podcast, which is called Talking Back to Suicide. So that's every Tuesday, and it's with a retired psychiatrist based in Oregon, in the States as well. So I'll send you a link to that podcast. Also, you check the work that we do in there. And if you feel, that, you can contribute to this, we can bring you on as a guest on that podcast as well, just to focus on mental health.
Good. That'd be great. So let's have a look at that as well.
Okay, cool.
Thank you very much, Kino.
You can check it out. Thanks, John, for joining. This was great. I never expected to go to 2 hours, but, is what it is.
Yeah.
But it was enjoyable and it was valuable.
Great. Thank you very much, Kino. I very much appreciate that. And hopefully,
enjoy the rest of your day. Right, bye.
Hopefully we'll see people from your area coming to Hollywood with their new married wife. Or husband.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I wonder how what they face, like especially if they're single, what they're gonna say after that. They're probably like, okay, let me go check who I can get married to straight away. I need to get to Hollywood.
There we go.
Okay, thanks, John. Enjoy the rest of your day. Much love, much respect.
Thank you very much, Kino. You too. Bye-bye.
All right. Okay. Bye.